During a recent get-together of the US Bethel Alumni chapter, which was held at the Great Lakes Adventist Academy in Michigan, we were privileged to have several Bethel alumni, including two former principals, former faculty members, and a student from the late 1940s. I was honored to interview some of them at short notice without prior preparation. I first interviewed Dr. Milton Sipman, who was first at Bethel in 1958 up to around 1966, and then later as principal from 1973 to 1978. I also spoke to Gogo Katenga, who was a Duma at that time, who was also a student at Bethel from 1948 to 1949, and also Mrs. Hunter, who was at Bethel with her husband from 1961 to 1963. I hope you'll enjoy these interviews. Thank you. I'm here today with Dr. Milton Sipman, who's been at Bethel a number of times, initially as a registrar and then later as a principal. And I've asked him to share some of his experiences with us. But when were you first there, when you first at Bethel?
I came to Bethel at the beginning of 1958. And Pastor Woody Hurlow was the principal then at the time, and Pastor Ron Carey and his wife were there. He was the business manager. My wife Arlene at that time and I came as teachers. Pastor Hurlow soon realized that I wanted to learn a great deal about how a school functions, how a school works, and so forth. So he invited me to come and work in the administration office during my free time. And within a few months, he made me the registrar with responsibility for the admission process for students. And I found that immensely interesting. Because we were fortunate at that time to have many more applications from students than what we could actually admit. And going through that process of determining, who do we feel should come, and then meeting with a small committee to make sure that the decision that was made wasn't just one person's decision. Was very, very interesting and very rewarding. And what surprised me was that having worked with each application several times, getting all the supporting documentation, etc., getting all of that in, by the time the students arrived and they would identify themselves, I would instantly associate the name with the face. They couldn't catch me a week later and that I didn't know them. I would know immediately. I would know where they came from. I would know what their parents did, whether they were Adventists or not, which church they attended. It was a fascinating period, but I learned a tremendous amount through that process, through the years. And Elder Hurlow and then later Elder Rex Pearson, when he came, they gave me more and more responsibility. Even though my title didn't change, but I learned more and more about how a school works, how the finances work, because we were fortunate at that time to have many more applications from students than what we could actually admit. I want to insert something here. Our student body probably never really knew this. But as a faculty, when I was the principal, we had spoken about the fact that we are in a situation where by law we have to follow the Bantu education system, which we all knew was inferior to what was being taught in the white schools. we also recognized that it was simply a matter of time when there would be majority rule. It absolutely had to come, and it would not wait indefinitely. So therefore, we believe that we have a responsibility, even though we are tied to an inferior syllabus system, we have a responsibility to give our students as many tools as we possibly can give them, so that when the time comes, they can compete in a new environment. And so our decision was, we are going to use the syllabus, but we are going to teach it in a way that gives our students the skill sets. You know, you can learn a lot of history, but the knowledge of a lot of history doesn't help you to compete in the real world. You are going to forget a lot of what you learned, a lot of knowledge you're going to forget. But if you have the tools of how to acquire knowledge, how to do your research, how to choose between what fits what you are looking for and what you're going to put aside, the difference between fact and fiction, how to reason from cause to effect, how to write things down in a way that is clear and moves from step to step to step. We made sure that in our teaching we would try to inculcate those skill sets in our students, though, even though we were tied to an inferior system. We worked consciously, very hard, with the thought process in mind. We've got to provide our students with the skill sets that they will need in order to make progress and be able to compete in this new world that is on our doorstep.
Could I, maybe in the interest of time, move from that very position to where we are now?
Yes. There is a promise in Scripture that if we seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, what happens? All these other things will be added unto us. When you look at the history of Bethel, and Bethel was not a large school in terms of numbers of students. There were many schools more prestigious, much larger, the Fort Hares and all of that. But when you look at the history of Bethel, and you see the percentage of Bethel graduates who have gone on into significant professions, positions of leadership, not only in the church, but in commerce and industry and politics and government. When you look at that percentage, it is a phenomenal story of success. And I believe the fundamental reason for that is we placed God first, and He executed His blessing. I will now give you these other things. And our students who had learned integrity, honesty, hard working, and all of those characteristics stood out from the other average student out there. And I believe that's why we've had this very high success rate through the years, not just in my administration, through the years, this very high success rate that excels what others have had. You know, Speaker of the House, Ambassador, South African Ambassador to Russia, numerous high positions in government, numerous high positions in leadership, and leaders in our church in Southern Africa today, and in South Central Africa and in Central Africa, who have come through our school system. It's a phenomenal achievement. Now, how does this apply to Bethel where it is today? Bethel's situation today is a very awkward one. In the days when it flourished, the choice that South African people had for their children was very limited. Bethel was the most prestigious one. Yes, you had Kanmele. Yes, you had a school in Swaziland. Yes, you had a small school in Botswana. But Bethel had the prestige, and Bethel got the enrollment. Today, the picture is very different. Our Adventist people can send their children to virtually any school they choose to if they have the money to do it. And so Bethel's ability to attract Adventist students today, it is now competing against the Sedavens, the Helderbergs, and these other schools, let alone all of the state schools, government schools. Now, as I've listened to people talking, and I've asked a lot of questions, as I've listened to our friends here talking, one clear message has come across to me, and that is our church in Southern Africa is doing very little to help our people understand the importance of Seventh-day Adventist Christian education. Now, this perception that I have is based purely upon what I've heard here. It may be too small a sample to really get an accurate picture, but I believe it's extremely important if we are going to get a higher percentage of our Adventist young people into our schools, as opposed to going everywhere else. The understanding, the realization of the extreme importance of a Seventh-day Adventist Christian education. Secondly, and I said this afternoon, as I saw the pictures of what has been done in the years since I left, the expansion that has taken place, the amount of money that the General Conference put into Bethel, the infrastructure that is there, I find it hard to believe that the Union Conference should simply walk away and not want to operate it. To turn it over to a local conference, I do not believe is a good move for this reason. The Cape Conference has the responsibility now to operate the school, but your students are going to come from different conferences all over the place. Yet the Cape Conference is faced with the responsibility of making the numbers work. And they are not going to have the motivation to fund what it needs to take care of students from all over Southern Africa. So I think that step is flawed in my mind. I really believe that if Bethel is going to be able to move forward, the South African Union Conference is going to have to recognize that a place like Bethel serves the whole constituency, or it has the potential of serving the whole constituency. Now, how do we attract students? How do we get students from all over South Africa who can go to Helderberg, who can go to Sedavin, who can go all over the place? How do we attract them to Bethel? In order to attract them to Bethel, Bethel is going to have an influx of experienced, high quality, well-trained teachers. Because now Bethel has to compete against Helderberg. It's got to compete against Sedavin. It's got to compete against the other schools. And the only way it can compete successfully is if its students do just as well, if not better, than they can do with these other schools. It's going to take an injection of superior faculty. It's going to take an injection of highly dedicated Seventh-day Adventist teachers who are willing to come to an out-of-the-way place. Helderberg is sitting in the middle of civilization. Sedhaven is in the middle of civilization. Bethel is sitting in the Transkei. So it's going to take the dedication of people who can see what it needs in order to turn a school around in this new environment. It's, as I see it, this is not an easy task. It's not an easy task, but I would not give up on it at this point in time. I would not give up on it. You've got the basic physical plant that can do it. It needs dedication, commitment, and influx of expertise to be able to make that school compete with anybody else. And Bethel was able to do it. Let me give you just a simple example. Just before Bantu education was instituted in South Africa, when our African schools, when Bethel was still able to function with a curriculum that was the same as they were having in the white schools throughout the country. At Bethel, Patrick and Changasi, I don't know if you remember Patrick, Patrick and Changasi got the highest marks for anybody in the country in the junior certificate for agriculture. The highest marks of anybody in the country. And the school excelled. When you compared Bethel's results with the results of other schools, it ranked in the top 80%. And people were amazed. You do that in the Transkei? Yeah. Do you think there's anything wrong with the brains of the black people? They need the opportunity. They need the exposure. They need the faculty who can teach, who can inspire, who can motivate, who can recognize that while there may be a poor background somewhere because some of these little village schools have not been able to be too successful, but their students come with motivation, with the desire to learn, give them the opportunity, give them the faculty who can motivate them and drive them and make it work. And they did. They did. All we have to do today is look around and see how the Bethel students have excelled in fields all over the place. You're an example. Your brother's an example. And
Yes.
I believe that's what it's going to take. The South African Union Conference is going to have to recognize it's going to take an influx of capital, of expertise and commitment.
What do you think the role of the alumni should be, given the context and the challenges that we've spoken about?
I'm a very strong believer that the power lies in the hands of the people. And so while this may take longer or seem to take longer, I believe that if the alumni can work diligently at the local church level, to help our members to understand the importance of Seventh-day Adventist Christian education, using themselves as the example. I was there as a student. Here I am as an alumnus. I'm a successful, whatever it is that I do. I'm an Adventist. I return a faithful tithe. This is what Christian education did for me. This is what Bethel did for me. And we can do it again. If we can get that spark alive again at the local church level, that's where the power is. That's where the power is. Because it is at the local church level that we elect our leaders.
Yes.
Now that's a bit of politics, but that's just the way it is.
Yes.
I really believe that at the local church level, in all of our cities, you have a base of people who are Bethelites by experience,
Yes.
and whose recollections of Bethel are positive.
Yes.
I believe that that fire can be lit again in them, and they can begin to put the pressure on the conference and on the Union Conference to resuscitate Bethel. To me, that's where the power is.
Amen. Thanks a lot, Milton. I think those were very apt words to end on. I think that should be part of the rallying cry, as it were.
Yeah. You know, yes, do you push at the conference level?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you push at the union? Yes. You push. But I really believe the power is at the local church base, amongst that strong cadre of church members who have had a Bethel connection and who are proud of that history.
Yes. Well, thanks a lot, Milton. I'm privileged to have Ugogo Katenga this morning, so we can chat a bit about her experiences and also talk a little about Bethel. By the way, Gogo, when were you at Bethel, and how did you get to Bethel?
Yeah, that's for sure. My getting to Bethel is actually a miracle. I was in a government school in Durban, Clearwood Government School, but it went up to standard 6, so there was no secondary school. So we had to go to a secondary school at Malvern, and it was a Roman Catholic secondary school. But I hadn't experienced living in a Catholic area. I didn't know what they do. But during the playtime, recess, we were playing in the playground. And then some bell rang, and then everybody froze in the playground. And I thought, what is going on? And then people were making a cross, and I thought, what's happening? So when we got home, I was with my niece. So when we got home, I told my sister, no, I don't think we are happy. We are going to be happy where we are. They stopped and started making crosses. So what's happening? And we were actually quite upset. We were there for 2 weeks in that school. So while we're still talking about that, we went to church as usual. But fortunately, there was a pastor, a visiting pastor who came. And then my sister voiced this complaint to the pastor. So the pastor said, no problem. I'm going to write a letter, and then you can go to Bethel Training College, our school.
Were you already Adventists then?
Yes, I was an Adventist. In fact, my parents were, I should say my mom, was an Adventist. My father was not an Adventist, unfortunately.
And what was your maiden name?
Duma. Duma mthombeni lwandle kaluwela zinkonjane zona zipapa phezulu. For those who know Zulu, they will know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Abapheka neche kwavuthwa iche kuqala bengakavuthwa.
And then the pastor
wrote a letter. So we did not even make an application. So he just told us, you have to buy white uniform for church, and then black and white for school, and it should be cover your knees, whether standing or sitting.
Yes.
And we just followed that. In fact, it was sewing all night long, sewing for the next day. So we went to school, and they took us at that school without, it's amazing, yeah.
And what year was that?
That was 1948. So we were there 1948 and 1949. 49, that's when I did my standard 8. Then it was JC.
JC, yes.
But unfortunately, JC in the government school is done for 3 years. But in our school, we did 2 years in Bethel.
Yeah.
So I did that. That was okay. But we had to make a choice whether you wanted to teach or to be a nurse. So I decided teaching, that means I have to remain in school and pay my fees, and then it was not going to be easy because my parents were very old, so it's my sister who was paying the fees.
Yes.
So I wasn't very happy about that. So I thought the best thing is to go for nursing, which was a great thing that I did. I really enjoyed that one. And so I went for nursing at Nokupila Hospital in Johannesburg.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that was now end of 1950, that's when I was. But when I was at Bethel, yeah, my experiences in that in school, I can remember two. Well, there are many, but I'll tell you about the two.
Yes.
During it's not a good one though, but I'll tell you all the same.
Yes.
During my stay there, we had holidays just once in a while. So we're going to the sea.
Mazeppa Bay.
Correct.
Yes.
So we went there. So in the car that I was in, something went wrong, so we delayed a bit on the road. So by the time we got to the sea, people were already swimming
In the water.
and I didn't waste time coming from Durban.
Yes.
I know the sea.
Yes.
I enjoy that one.
Yes.
So got in there and then we moved. It was hardly 5-10 minutes, and then I could sense there was something wrong.
Were you already in the water?
Far in the water, beautifully far.
Oh, I see. You had swum in.
Yeah, and it was good. And then the waves started.
Oh.
An amazing wave came in and just swept, and another one swept, and another one swept. It was just impossible
Sure.
to do anything.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the sad part. And in fact, I was swept. I must say I was lucky because I was swept. I'm not lucky. God helped me. I was swept to a rock.
Oh, it's against the rock.
Against the rock, and I climbed onto that rock and started yelling. And the people were far away on the shore because the rock was right inside the sea. So I was yelling, and my niece was telling the teachers, now this is what I was told after, telling the teachers, it's my Domson Seraphine is in the ocean, it's in the sea, please go and help. The teacher says, no, be quiet, she's okay, she's still yelling.
Oh, yes.
Because other people were not yelling anymore,
Yes.
They were actually drowning. Yeah, but I got out of that, but I had swallowed a little bit of water,
yes.
and the ears were just going.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I was in the sick bay for 24 hours.
Yes.
But I was okay.
Yes.
But unfortunately, 2 of our students passed away.
They actually died.
Yeah, and then, which was worse actually, it's that the other girl was not the girl that passed away, the girl, I think it was a girl and a boy.
Yes.
But I know the girl because she was not an Adventist.
Yes.
So that really made it very hard.
Yes.
And
Yes.
in the church, we used to sing,
Yes.
and I used to enjoy that.
Yes.
But on that day,
It was quiet.
quiet. It was so quiet. You could just hear people,
Yes.
and then only the piano. And our principal was PSL,
Yes.
and he was playing that piano softly, very softly. I can still, I hear the waves, and I can hear that music and the only of the girls. That was the sad part I experienced in that play. Now, it's past that one.
Yes. Well, was that your first or your second year at Bethel?
Second year. I think it was my second year in
Yes,
Bethel.
yeah.
Because the first year, no, I think it was second.
Yes.
But I was baptized on my second year as well. That was the highlight.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we studied, the Great Controversy and so on. It was good. And then, of course, the Bible, all the fundamentals and everything else. You study all that until you know it well. And then by that time I was 18. And then I think I knew what I was doing. Yeah, but it was good.
Yes.
So I can just remember, I still remember, going down to that pool, whatever.
Baptismal pool.
Yes, we didn't have the beautiful pool which I think they have nowadays. No, we didn't, but that was fantastic for us. Went into there. and then everybody surrounding this thing, and people were singing.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Singing. Oh, now I see the crimson. Oh, it was beautiful.
Yes.
No, yeah. And going into the water. Oh.
Do you remember who the pastor was?
This is the thing.
Uh-huh.
I was saying to myself, who was the pastor? Because I don't think it was
Pastor Bethel.
No. I know it was my pastor. I can just see, but I don't remember his name. I know he'll remember because he's the one who said, in the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Ghost, I baptized you, Seraphim.
Yes.
Duma. Ooh.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
It feels very good when you
Yes.
come out of that water.
Do you remember some of your other classmates who finished with you?
I only remember, I don't think Alfred who I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, I'm remembering boys, and am I not awful?
No, you're not.
Alfred, because we're competing with him for top class.
Top of the class.
So that's
I
it.
see. Uh-huh.
And then even Moyo, I think he became a pastor
Yes.
afterwards.
Uh-huh. Do you know where he came from? Do you remember?
He came, even Moyo, I don't know, where did he come from, that young man? I don't actually know where he came from, but
Yes.
and then he came to Germany, that Moyo, came to Germany with the King Messengers Quartet.
Oh,
And
I see.
that time we were in Germany.
So did he sing with the King's Messengers?
Pardon?
Did he sing with the quartet?
No, he just came with them.
I see.
No, he
I
was
see.
not singing.
Uh-huh. I
Yeah,
see.
that's when I was baptized.
Yeah.
And when I came out, the few weeks that we stayed there, I think it was a few months, I was feeling really good. I'll tell you what I used to do. I used to dream every night,
Yes.
flying.
Oh, yeah.
It was good.
Going to heaven.
Flying real high.
Yes,
But
yes.
it was not nice because when I was flying, the fire was burning people
Oh, I
down
see.
there. It's not nice. But I did fly there.
Yes.
No, I really remember.
Who were the other teachers who were there?
I'm terrible.
Yes.
I'm really bad. I can't remember.
Yes.
I can't remember. In fact, I should be remembering the teacher who was teaching music.
Uh-huh.
That's the one I should remember. Because I loved the music and I was in the choir.
Yes.
But I can't even remember that.
Was he a South African?
He was a South African, and I think he was, if I say Mabuza, maybe I'm not telling the truth.
Uh-huh.
But he was there, so he was the one who was teaching music and songs, the choir music. Yeah.
And what was involved in the teaching? Was it tonic solfa?
Oh, tonic solfa, do re mi fa sol. No, but we were taught, we used to call it Izagila.
Well, what is that?
That is it.
Oh. The staff notation. Yes,
You have to transport it.
Yes, to transcribe.
You
Yes.
transpose this thing, these agilas to
Tonic solfa.
tonic solfa.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and then you can pass your music because it was a subject.
It was a class, a required class.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we had to pass that one.
Yes. At that time, did they have a teacher training program?
Yeah, they had teachers training program.
And
That's
also a ministerial program?
ministerial, and then those who wanted to do something else, then they come out. But the nursing, it was joined to the church because you came from there straight to Nogupila Hospital in Johannesburg.
Oh, was Nogupila an Adventist hospital? by the
Correct.
way?
So you didn't even have to apply when you were coming from Bethel.
I see.
We just moved from Bethel to Nogupila. It was natural when you choose nursing.
Could you tell me a little about Nogupila?
Nogupila Hospital was in Western Native Township, Sophia Town.
Oh,
That's
Sophia
where
Town.
the church used to go to.
Yes.
It was in Sophia Town.
And it was a hospital?
It was a hospital. I don't remember how many beds it was. Yeah, it was a training hospital. So they would train nurses because we did a shortage of 1 year when we were doing JC. Then we would make it up when we were doing nursing. So we'll do, instead of 3.5 years, we did 4.5 years.
I see, and
in our
1 year
nursing.
was part of
Part of
finishing
the
up,
correct
high
yeah.
school.
Yeah,
And then into the nursing
and then
program.
into the nursing program. Yeah, so that's what we did.
Yes. And how many students in a class?
Oh, don't ask me complicated things.
Oh,
But we're not many, seriously.
yes.
We're not many. It was a small hospital.
Do you know how long the hospital remained? Or
Not long, unfortunately. We were the last intake for nursing. We had some problems in the sense that I think registration for the to qualify. Accreditation was a bit complicated.
I see.
So because the school used to send us to Makod Zulu Hospital
Yes.
to do 6 months there.
Yes. Makod was
In Durban.
In Durban.
In Durban. From Johannesburg, you go to Durban. It was a mission hospital, also that one, but not Adventist. So go to Makod Zulu Hospital.
Yes, I know Makod.
Okay, so you do 6 months there, and then after 6 months you go back. And then the other bad thing was when you're doing your finals.
Yes.
They were not doing it in our hospital. We had to do it, I suppose, in this place. That is what happens all the time, but not at home at that time. You would go and do it in a different hospital. So we had the Coronation Hospital, which was just those days when they were dividing peoples, black, white, yellow, pink, whatever. So the Coronation Hospital was on the colored area. So we come from Nogopila to Coronation Hospital. And then, so when you are doing an examination, you are already nervous.
Yes.
And then you go to a strange environment. Then the nurses were not doing that well.
Yes.
And that was not very good.
Yes.
And then we also had a shortage of material, So setting of trays was a little different because we don't have enough.
Yes.
But you know what I'm saying? So it was a bit of a disadvantage.
Sure, I understand that,
Yeah. And then, unfortunately, the hospital had to stop training.
Yes.
But I think it continued nursing people as a hospital.
As a hospital, but no longer
training. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
No, but those two institutions, they really brought me up.
Yes.
But I enjoyed more my upbringing where I was baptized.
At Bethel.
Yeah, because that's when I felt,
You belong.
now I really belong. Yes, correct. That nobody can tell me anything. Yeah.
Do you think the faculty or the teachers helped you towards being a nurse?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, everything. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. No, I'm still in Bethel. Yeah, that school was good. So I would have, when you are doing, I don't know whether they still eat samp.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we were eating umngqusho. We were making it ourselves.
Yes.
We're not buying it. Maybe these days we are buying it.
Yes.
So we'd be going like this.
Yes.
And singing. And then we hit the stick, the mortar.
Yes.
The sticks were metal.
Yes.
Yes. So it would go,
Oh.
it was good. We had fun.
And how many students were there?
Don't ask me those complicated questions. We're many. And we're making our own bread. Do you know that?
Yeah.
We had an African stove, wooden stove. This wooden stove outside. And then you put wood, and then you put the tray.
Yes.
Yes. It was just good. I mean, the food, some people adapt easily. So I'm one of those who adapt easily too. And I just enjoy life.
Yes. Now, Gogo, do you have a message for us as we try help Bethel get back to what it used to be?
Yeah.
Do you think it's worth trying to get it back to what it used to be, especially after hearing us talk yesterday?
First of all, of course, we have to ask God to help us. But I'm just thinking as an individual who was there, if you could bring the standards to match the government standard.
The academic standard.
And at the same time, keep our uniqueness.
Yes.
If you could do that, then it's fine. But if at all we have our uniqueness, but then the academic standard is like this, then you still feel like you are limping.
Yes.
And that's not, because now you have to prove yourself.
Yes.
So when you make your application, they'll always ask standard of application. So when you say JC, you say standard 8. So you're not from 3. You did not finish, isn't it?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So it was a bit of a limp.
Yes.
So you have to prove yourself.
Yes.
Not that it's not a good thing, but if at all they can give you a chance
Yes,
to prove
yes,
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the academic standards are extremely important. I think even Sister White emphasized that we should aim to be at the top,
Yeah.
rather than the bottom.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I really like what you're mentioning, extremely high academic standards.
Yeah.
And also
Keep our
maintain
standards because we are
uniqueness.
fantastic.
Yes. Yes.
Without
yes.
that, we are nothing.
Yes. We're just like everyone else.
So what are
yes.
we?
Yes.
Yeah. But our uniqueness, our
Yes.
fantastic
Yes.
uniqueness, that will even make us soar even higher.
Yes. Yes.
Because, yeah.
Yes, well, thanks a lot.
You're
I think
welcome.
we'll
Thank
end
you
it
for
there.
having me.
And thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, well, thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Bye.
I'm really glad and blessed to have Ms. Hunter here today. I'll ask you first just to give us your name, and then briefly when you were at Bethel, what you did there, what you taught, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. So, shall I start?
Yes.
I was born in Florence Losey in Battle Creek, Michigan, but I won't tell you when. In 1961, well, in 1957, I married Gene Douglas Hunter. He was working for IBM, and then we had a chance to go to Africa, and IBM had given him a big raise the year before. They offered to double that if he would stay. But he said he wanted to be where God wanted him to be.
What profession was he in?
He was a math major from the University of Illinois,
I see.
but he worked in programming, computer programming at IBM. And they told me he could always come back. And I mean, they meant it. When we came back, we were back from 66 to 1970.
Yes.
IBM asked him to come back and work for them, you
Oh,
know.
that's good.
And they gave the first computers, IBM computers, to
Yes.
what was EMC.
Yeah. How did he receive the call to go to Africa?
We had gone down to a youth congress. And both of us had said when we were going to college, we didn't know each other at college, we went at different times, but we both had joined the Foreign Mission Band. And we had talked about before we got married that if we ever got a mission call, we would go. But we didn't expect to get one.
Yes.
I was an elementary teacher, and he was a math major. But we did when we were at a youth congress, and I have forgotten the name of the church official that was there, who spoke to us then. And soon after that, I mean, at the time, you know, I think they had checked on who had belonged to foreign mission bands at one time and was trying to find out if they were still interested. And anyway, the man came and visited us there in New York State. And I remember we got the telephone call asking if we would go to Africa. And just at that time, we were living here in Valley Missionary College. And one of my daughters had a classmate whose grandpa had ponies. And he had brought the ponies over the day before we got asked this call on the phone if we'd be willing to go to Africa. And right away, my daughter says, "Can we have ponies there?"
Oh, yes.
And of course, we couldn't because of the sleeping sickness for
Yes,
horses.
right.
And so we couldn't have a pony, but we went anyway.
And where did you go?
We went to Bethel,
I see.
1961. We arrived there probably about in May. And it was interesting then because at that time, 1961, South Africa was under apartheid.
Yes.
And yet on the mission at Bethel, there never was any apartheid in action. You know, we were one family together. But I know that our principal, Mr. Hurlow, was rather concerned because he said that if the government realized that we didn't enforce apartheid on the mission, he was afraid that they would close us. So he felt that. But we had a very good relationship. And Mr. Seatman was there, which I've been able to meet here again. And Mr. Hurlow.
I think he was registrar then. I say Mr. Sipman was registrar.
Not at the beginning.
Oh, I see.
We had Mr. Carey in the business.
Oh, yes, Mr. Carey. Yeah.
And I enjoyed getting to know him very well.
So your husband taught math? Then?
He taught math, and then I taught in the teacher training department. Because I probably had my master's degree by then anyway.
So at that time there was the high school and the
Theology, which Gunston's did.
Oh, Gunston. I see. Oh, I'd forgotten that name.
Yeah, yep, they were there.
And then the teacher training program. Who was the director of that program then?
I was the first year. I was called to be the director.
Yes.
My husband and I actually answered two separate calls.
I see.
They wanted someone to be a director for teacher training, and they wanted a math teacher. And so we did it. And I had my master's degree already.
Yes.
So I think we both had our master's degrees at that time when we went out.
And how long were you there?
We were there 3 years.
3 years.
Because we got moved up to Sluicy. We didn't come home or anything.
Oh, I see.
I mean, there was a need, I think, for my husband at Sluicy at that time. So we had 3 years in South Africa at Bethel, and then we were up at Sluicy for the next 3 years.
I see.
And I have one daughter, Velma, that was born in Butterworth, and I have another daughter, Jill, the fourth daughter. She was born in Sluicy.
Oh, I see.
So, but
And then came back to the U.S. then?
for 4 years. And then we went back out again. But that time we went to Kenya.
I see. And how long were you in Kenya?
From 71 through 76
And which institution?
at Kamagambo.
Oh, I see.
Teachers College again. Teachers College and secondary school.
Yes.
So I was working there. And it's enjoyable. We had the first two Maasai boys that came to our school at all. They were in teacher training. And they didn't know the Kisi or Luo languages. And so I worked with them a lot with English speaking with our own mission kids. Gave them experiences that way. And as I said, we had the first two Maasai. By the time we left 5 years later, they had gone back to their own tribe. And we had a group of 25 Maasai people that were meeting for church. And we were down there for communion service. So it makes you feel good. That's why I like teaching, because your work multiplies so quickly.
So they sort of work like pioneer missionaries, is it true?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was difficult at first for them, very difficult. But they listened very well, followed directions.
Yes,
And there are stories there too.
Yes.
Where
Any
the Lord
stories?
used them.
Yes. Any stories from Bethel or people you remember?
Well, yes. The way things were there. I mean, it was a different time.
Yes.
And I was called there to be the director of teacher training, and I was for a year. And the second year, but I was only a wife. I mean, at that time the church didn't have, I mean, I was a wife. I did not get sustentation credit or anything for it. And I was director of teacher training the first year. The second year, Mr. Kozachenko came from, he actually was Canadian. And I went up to get my class assignments 2 weeks before school started. I found out I was no longer the director of teacher training. And I asked, I wondered if I'd done something wrong. And Elder Hurlow said, no. He says, you can't expect a man to work under a woman. But Mr. Kozachenko was fine. I went on teaching my 20 classes, and we got along fine. But I wasn't there. I was there to serve the Lord in any way I could. But back then.
But as you say, back then things were different.
I got the same pay, a wife's pay, without sustentation credit. The same as the woman who opened the store for the students, 1 hour a week. And I was teaching 20 classes and supervising student teaching, but I loved my work. the Lord knows what I did.
Yes, I think that's a good way to think about it, that the Lord knew and blessed.
And
But
all-
it was a sacrifice.
Yes and no. There were
Yes.
many blessings too. We went out with our first little girl, was 2. And by the way, it's interesting because here I have met Seat once again, and they were there, you see. And Seaty was a little girl playing with my little girl. They were 2 and 3 years old then. And
And now their parents.
yes, but we still remember what they were like.
Sure.
But I have found a lot of inspiration in being here.
Yes.
To,
Do you remember any of the students you taught?
yes, but the Natisos boys,
Yeah. Oh.
they were from Basutoland.
Masud, yes. David and Tiso.
And Obed, yes.
Tiso, Obed and Tiso. I know them because
You did?
my dad taught at Emmanuel Mission in Lesotho.
Oh, I visited there.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I know the Tisos, yes. Yeah.
Well, I tried to get a hold of them a year ago and found out that both David and Obed are deceased now.
Yes,
And I wished I had tried to get a hold of them sooner.
yes.
But when I went to a new place, I threw myself into my work there.
Of course, yeah.
But David and Obed were both my
They were at
husband's students.
Bethel?
Yes. And
Yes.
David was appointed to be my husband's reader.
Oh, I see.
And I remember soon after I got there, my husband sent me in. We had a car, and he sent David with me. You know, David knew the way to Butterworth. It was the first time we made it, but he'd sent David with me. We got back, and we were told that was against the law because apartheid was the law.
Yeah.
And I could, a white person and a black person
Right
couldn't be
in the
alone
car.
together. So we had to learn to adapt to the culture. But on campus, we had a very good atmosphere. And Florence Nicholswana was a first grade teacher and an excellent teacher. And of course, I had to put students in there for practice teaching.
Yes.
So I got to be quite
Oh, I see.
close friends with her. And I was happy. Only since I've been here have I found out how much she did afterwards in working with young people, with children.
Yes, with children.
And,
And his son too is, he has a school, a private school he runs, and worked with children.
I'm so thankful to hear about that.
Yes,
Because, and I like to feel that I was able to encourage her.
yes, yes.
But I recognized her ability. And then I put students in there to, she was helping teach them. And we were close friends. And Miss Coupetti was another person
Oh,
that
yes,
I felt very close to.
Yes, I remember the Coupetis,
Yes. So,
Yeah, well, I'm glad to have gotten this time to talk to you and share some of these experiences. I'm also now thinking back to the folks you're mentioning
yes.
that I haven't thought about or seen in years. Or at least I know some of the offspring of those folks.
That's great.
Yes. Well, thanks a lot then for talking to us. Any words you'd like to share with the alumni as they try to get established, and also with the centenary gathering next year?
Well, I'm thinking back. We were there for 3 years at Bethel and 3 years at Seleuci. Then we came back to the States. We were here for 4 years. And that time we had a call to Kenya. So we went. And still no telephones even then. And we lost 3 of our missionaries to death during the 6 years that we were there at
In Kenya?
Cameroon. Yes.
Yes.
Because, no telephones, no health, it's, malaria,
Yes,
health problems.
yes.
And, but when Mrs. Lassard died, my husband said that Africa is as good a place to meet the Lord as any.
Oh,
And I am so glad he said that,
Yes.
because in a way it gave me permission that when he died,
Yes.
he's buried in Kenya.
Oh, I see.
And that is where Gene Hunter will meet the Lord.
Oh, yes, yes, amen. Yes.
I came back to the States.
Yes.
And in '79, I remarried
Yes.
a person who'd lost his wife by death.
Yes.
So my name is Florence Jerome.
Yes.
But
yes,
I definitely to Africa. I'm
Yes.
Mrs. Jean Hunter,
Yes.
and my heart's in Africa.
Yes.
I loved my work there.
Yes. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the contribution
Oh,
you
you're
made
welcome.
to the young people in Africa.
It was a joy.
Yes. Yes.
And my husband said he wanted to be where God wanted him to be,
Yes.
and I felt that way.
Yes. Yes.
And I have felt that Africa was,
Yes.
it was some of my most enjoyable work.
Yes. Yes. Thanks a lot.